Harvard Divinity School.
100 Years Rudolf Steiner, December 15th and 16th, 2025.
Our next speaker is Kevin Dann. Kevin Dann is a historian of American natural history and ecology and a teacher of Native American history at different universities. And he will speak about In the Circle of 12 Rudolf Steiner and as a Rudolf Steiner as Bodhisattva.
Hello, friends. Thank you, Camden and Anthony and Mary, for those inspiring presentations. Anyone who was here this morning for the panel, the opening was Angelika Schmidt sharing an incredible discovery in the archives. It was like she found treasure, extraordinary treasure. And once upon a time, I found some treasure in that archive. This little slip of paper, it's only about yay big, two-part treasure from Rudolf Steiner. It was found, it's, you know, how many of you have been there to the archive, and cold, and on the outside, these metal cabinets, but inside, incredible, amazing things. Sometimes just a little tiny thing like this. And at the top, you see these four vortices, inward spirals and outward spirals, that describe human evolution. Below, you can see the Roman numerals, is the text. Picture of the development of the human spirit. At the beginning, humans are God. At the end, humans are the image of God. And then below it, a smaller vortex, the cancer gesture, with these extraordinary four axioms. The world is a vortex. Every inward spiral must become an outward spiral. Life must be a lesson. The human being must become a vortex. Everything brought to completion as a vortex is magic. I have a friend out here who told me when I first came to anthroposophy, and he said, you know, Rudolf Steiner was meant to be the greatest white magician who ever lived. And he sacrificed that to become our teacher and our friend. So each of these axioms is so extraordinary. It's typical. It's also, it may seem self-explanatory, and yet, like all of Rudolf Steiner's teachings, holds incredible mysteries behind them. And I see this vortex as a kind of a golden thread that runs through Rudolf Steiner's life. Rudolf Steiner said himself to one of his closest esoteric students, my life is like a golden thread that runs through the human story. A golden thread that, I would say, the vortex is the arcanum that runs with that golden thread through Rudolf Steiner's life. And many of you have some familiarity with that. I'm going to look at a particular part of that golden thread. And if you flip through the Rudolf Steiner scrapbook, and with, you know, this is the way it is with if any of you are able to find four-leaf clovers, right? Once you get the search image, boom, it starts appearing everywhere. And the same thing is with Rudolf Steiner. Once you put the vortex, the cancer gesture in your consciousness, you will see how he's constantly not only bringing that into material form, it's also evanescing. And I would say in the Goetheanum, this extraordinary pinnacle of Rudolf Steiner's creative work, it's everywhere. And one can almost think of this train of vortices running down from the spiritual world, incarnating into material form in the Goetheanum, whether it's in the stained glass windows or in the capitals. Everywhere you look, you see the vortex. But also in what was being done there, the mystical mystery acts that were to be performed in the Goetheanum, the first Goetheanum, a chain of vortices running up, bringing earth to heaven. So Rudolf Steiner was himself an exemplar of the vortex. He was constantly turning himself inside out. And with each time he turned himself inside out, birthing something new. For that is what's there, right? Between the gap, between the infolding and the outfolding. That is the space in the embryo of chaos, right? So that the spiritual ethers can work into this new soul coming into the mother's womb. And I will look at 7 incarnations. It's hard to resist the number 7. I don't claim it to be a complete picture of the karmic biography of Rudolf Steiner, but I hope to share with you a picture of how he turned himself inside out from incarnation to incarnation. He said in the opening lecture of the Karmic Lectures in 1924, in February of 1924, he looked out at a group of wonderful faces and he said, "We must go for a walk in time." Let's go for time. And we, my friends, must go for a walk in time and do the Rukshau of Rudolf Steiner's life together. I hope we can do that to find out his true Bodhisattva nature. You know, the closing moment of the talk, the closing panel, Marcellus talked about, he didn't say the pencil exercise, he was talking about attention exercise. He talked about throwing a stone into the air. And I love to skip stones. So I want you to think of these 7 incarnations as if I went out on the pond out here and skipped that stone 7 times. That is Rudolf Steiner as dancer, as eurythmist across time. Well, there he is. I've seen this photograph so many times, but when I was preparing for this talk, I finally noticed that Rudolf Steiner, in a very practical gesture of labor, had his right hand on the representative of humanity's heart. Oh, what am I doing? Oh, okay. Okay, hello, friends. Yeah, so there on the heart of the representative of humanity, and then on the larynx. Yeah, wow, amazing. So let's call Rudolf Steiner at the top of these. There aren't 7 steps on that staircase, but the Bodhisattva who is in ceaseless service, as all of them are, to the Lord, to the Son, Spirit, the Logos, Christ. And what was his mission in the 20th century? So hard to describe. I mean, this a whole 4 days of coming together to try and encompass this extraordinary individual. I call him the avatar of conscious clairvoyance and freedom, whose mission was in the 20th century a very difficult mission to bring freedom, consciousness, evolution, and the synthesis of all science, art, religion, philosophy, a synthesis, a total synthesis. And here he is chiseling into ash and maple and elm, and there would be marble and granite, chiseling into the forms that humanity needed for the future. So living forms. How can we find this as we go back in the Rukshau through his previous incarnations? Thomas Aquinas. You know, I should probably just give a little caveat. So all but one of these identifications I make are, they've been anthroposophical hearsay for a century, right? They were all based on indications made to close friends and students of Rudolf Steiner's. So the Aquinas, I don't think that's surprising to anyone. In fact, Anthony touched upon the revivification of scholasticism, the revivification of so much. So Thomas Aquinas, look at that brow, the tonsure, accentuating the brow. Look for the brow. The Aries Bodhisattva, the Bodhisattva thinking has this beautiful brow, that gesture of Aries right there. So the Bodhisattva of thinking before he became Rudolf Steiner, what do we find? We find Aristotelian intelligence. It comes back baptized, interiorized, ordered to Christ, Christianized. If Rudolf Steiner is Thomas Aquinas, after 8 more centuries of evolution, then Aquinas is the preparatory culmination. A maximum of medieval clarity is achieved within the medieval paradigm. So in St. Thomas, we see Aristotle in Christian light. We see being as gift, not self-grounding. The Logos ordering all things. And if you can already anticipate this, I'd love to compare notes with some of you afterwards. How do you feel like this transmutation, as Mary said, or this metamorphosis happens from incarnation to incarnation? In Steiner, in Rudolf Steiner, we see Aquinas reappearing as the fulfillment, not the negation of metaphysics. Continuing on, who's that? Shanatalander, in the arms of Saguna, this Pietà image, if you will, the night of fidelity and the trial of meaning. Shanatalander, of course, from the Grail cycle, the Parsifal story from Wolfram von Eschenbach, he passes through something that's not as much highlighted in these other incarnations of existential ordeal and fidelity and quest. Indeed, he's a figure of chivalric loyalty, and his trial is of sacrificial love. We see personal devotion and ordeal within a knightly chivalric existence. Purification through suffering and devotion, and the experiential side of truth. We're living in a very abstract realm here at the Harvard Divinity School these few days. This was real. To be a knight upon horseback or upon foot in that time period in the 9th century was certainly a deep, deep experience. So Shanatalander's mission was to suffer and to live truth. Truth, the brow, thinking, selfless devotion to Christ. Well, some of you may know that there's a debate about who those two figures are at the center. They usually say Plato and Aristotle of Raphael's great painting. I'm going to steal from Raphael to say this is Aristotle. Form, substance, entelechy. My friend who looked at this said, don't put that word entelechy in there. I'm like, I'm at Harvard Divinity School. Come on, man. So the brow again, underneath those curls. And entelechy, this Greek word that signifies having its end within, telos, its end within, this inner drive to reach its potential state. And the Bodhisattvas is what's true for the Bodhisattvas is true for all of us. Its potential state of union with Christ, union with the Lord. So a human being, in a way, is on the way to becoming a bodhisattva, and the bodhisattvas dwelling, the 12 of them in the circle around the Logos, from potentia to actuality. What are the motifs we see in Aristotle? Reality as intelligible form. The entelechy, inner purpose unfolding, like the alchemists knew. They were looking to transmute by knowing what those inner potentials were. And that's the alchemy that we're all called to do. Logic, categories, analytic clarity. The entire mode of anthroposophical exposition is Aristotelian metaphysics, become clairvoyant. What's the spiritual function of Aristotle within these skipping stones of time? He establishes the intellectual skeleton without which spiritual science would dissolve into mere mysticism, chaos, fantasy, which we know is not the case at all. Pratalists, over here. The crisis of name and being. Pratalists represents this when names corresponding to reality becomes a question for the human being. Thinking must become adequate to reality. We know this through time, but especially as it exists in our time with Rudolf Steiner's incarnation. And finally, the surprise, Moses holding the Ten Commandments above, the bearer of the law and the I am. By commanding wisdom, Moses leads a people into history. He mediates the divine I am into historical form and prepares humanity for the incarnation of the Logos. So, friends, I present these seven. Oh, I left Ibani out, forgive me. Ibani and Kizu. Let's just do it here. Thank you. Maybe some of you have played that role before. The earth, standing firmly on the earth, the sort of beastly man. So extraordinary to think of that being transmuted, metamorphosed into the next incarnation, into Moses. How does this happen? It's a mystery. How does it happen? Well, it happens. Oh, it happens through this gesture. Always 7 skipping stones through time, the Aries gesture. Upright thinking, there in the brow, there in the brow. And the Cancer gesture. Yeah, oh, sorry. Come on, everybody stand up and do that gesture with me. Yeah. Come on. I came to Harvard. I'm going to get everybody in my room doing the Cancer gesture with me. Close your eyes with me, friends, if you will. And think of our teacher and friend, Rudolf Steiner. 7 skipping stones across the pond of cosmic time. With each gesture, let's make this. The world is a vortex. Every inward spiral must become an outward spiral. Life must be a lesson. The human being must become a vortex. Everything brought to completion as a vortex is magic.
Sponsored by the Program for the Evolution of Spirituality.
Copyright 2023, Preston Fellows of Harvard College.